move up and say, no, we got to cure this thing. So the entire edifice is corrupt. There are no honest people in Ukraine. None. Every single one of them is on the grift. They're all liars. They sustain this lie. Some of them may be decent enough not to make fortunes themselves, but they understand that should they speak out, should they squeak, should they squawk, they will be crushed. And so they are complicit. It's like I've said in America that once an American police officer is on the job for more than 6 months, he's already corrupted. How can you say that? Well, because in that 6 months, I can virtually guarantee that he's seen another cop do something that violates the law, and he was silent about it. That makes him a corrupt cop, because a corrupt cop can tolerate no infraction of the law by a fellow police officer. None whatsoever. And the moment you do, you've bought into the corruption. So Ukraine may have people who aren't taking the money, but they are aware of those who are taking the money, and they are silent. They cover up for them. They are corrupt. The entire system is corrupt, and it cannot be redeemed. There is no hope for this. Again, if you had a hard man, an iron man, a dictator, you could even call him a brutal dictator who truly loved his country and was truly doing this to help his country get through this conflict with the understanding that he and his system will exit stage right when this is done. You could tolerate this kind of stuff, but not the corruption, but you could tolerate, no free press, no that. But this fake democracy we have in place, Zelensky is no Winston Churchill, never has been, never will be. But the West continues to promote that. But at some point in time, the emperor has no clothes, and Zelensky is as naked as can be. And the West can't keep pretending that he is outfitted in this remarkable outfit. He's naked for the world to see. He has to be removed. And who's going to replace him, though? Poroshenko? He's even more corrupt. He is the epitome of corruption. If you remember when Zelensky before he became president, he did this TV show, Servant of the People. And in it, he's supposed to be the great anti-corruption crusader that's going against the corrupt system. Who do you think the corrupt system was? Poroshenko. It was literally, the TV show was about, this wonderful little school teacher turned, populist president taking on Petro Poroshenko. It was a scheme designed to insinuate Zelensky as a believable presidential figure to fight the corruption of Petro Poroshenko, of the oligarchs, of the corrupt government officials. It was done on purpose to put that in the mindset of the Ukrainian people so that when the time came to confront Poroshenko at the polls, Zelensky could say, I would like to be the guy I play on TV. I would like to be the anti-corruption crusader. I would like to be the man of peace. Now, he was just a comedian playing a part, but the people didn't know any better. Martin Sheen, there was a period of time where Martin Sheen could have run for the president of the United States. I would imagine if he was younger right now and West Wing wasn't so long ago, that Martin Sheen could be the president of the United States today. Does he have any qualification to be president? None whatsoever, except one. He played an American president on a popular TV show, and many Americans, when they see them, say, that's the president of the United States. I believe that man could be the president of the United States. That's what they did to Zelensky. They put him up there. But the corruption that he was fighting in his TV show is the corruption of Petro Poroshenko. So Poroshenko is no alternative. There is no other alternative. You can go back and look for other people and previous things, but they're all tainted by Ukrainian nationalism. The Ukrainians that came into power after the Orange Revolution were all ultra-nationalists. The first act that Yushchenko did was to elevate Stepan Bandera to the national hero of Ukraine. You want them in power? Ukraine has no viable option. The best political option for the Ukrainians actually are the Eastern Ukrainians who fled when this conflict began. They are in Russia today. They have formed a government in exile. To the extent to which the Russian government actually, listens and absorbs what they have to say, I don't know. I can't say that, but these are the people. I've talked to several of them, and it's interesting. They say that when this war is over, they believe that Russia will be in control, political control of the totality of Ukraine, and that there will be a purge of all of the Western Ukrainian-based nationalists and all of the corrupt oligarchs, etc. And the purge could take 3 to 5 years. But when it's done, the Russians will actually turn the system over to the Ukrainians and say, you elect your own officials, have a presidential election, elect somebody. And maybe at that time, Ukrainian people will be able to elect somebody who isn't an ultranationalist or a corrupt oligarch or beholden to a corrupt oligarch or threatened by Ukrainian nationalists, to elect a real leader, a servant of the people who can actually build genuine democratic institutions in Ukraine.
Yeah. You already know what has happened to Afghanistan. At the end of the day, the United States left it in the hand of Taliban. And right now, in Ukraine, I think the future of Ukraine would be together with Russia, not with the United States, because the United States doesn't belong to that region. And Russia would be interested to have a prosperous Ukraine on his border, because it's so important for Russia as well. That's why it seems that Putin didn't decide to destroy everything on the western part of Ukraine.
It's interesting. I talked to, again, some of these Ukrainian politicians in exile. And I asked them, I said, many in Russia consider Kharkov and Odessa to be Russian cities. Dnipropetrovsk to be a Russian city, Mykolaiv, Sumy, all of these to be Russian cities. And that, they believe that this war can't end until Russia takes over the totality of the territory that historically has been known as Novaya Russia, New Russia. And these are Ukrainians. They are, some of them are ethnic Russians, some aren't. But almost to a person, they went, well, that's not necessarily the model that is going to happen. And I went, really? How do you explain this to the Russian people who think that it has to happen? Understand that Putin right now is continues to only talk about consolidation of Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, and Lugansk. He wants all of those territories to be, evicted of Ukrainian forces, and those are part of Russia. But there's no talk right now of Odessa, Kharkov, Sumy, Dnipropetrovsk becoming part of Russia. None whatsoever. There could be. But here's the thing. When this war is over, what does Russia want? Do they want a Ukraine that hasn't been totally defeated, continues to believe in NATO and EU as the direction they need to have, where ultranationalism continues to reside? That kind of Ukraine will just be a cancerous tumor attached to Russia that is going to cause problems down the road. You haven't cured the disease. You may have caused it to go into remission, but it hasn't been cured. I don't think there's anybody in Russia that will tolerate that outcome, not after the sacrifices Russia has made. So the tumor must be removed. Now you can do this by cutting Ukraine apart in a way that destroys its viability as a modern nation state. But when you do that, understand that the cancer cells, these ultranationalists, they're going to go into diaspora. They're going to come in, they're going to go down to Ellenton, New York, where there's already a Banderist base. They're going to go up to Canada, where Cynthia Freeland has all of her Nazis in place. They'll go to Australia, they'll go to Germany, they'll go into diaspora, where the intelligence services of the United States and Western Europe will provide them money to funnel resources back into Ukraine to keep the nationalism alive. And because you've created a Ukraine that's not a viable state, there will be unemployment, there will be poverty, there will be political unrest. And so the nationalist ideology, cancer cells can take root and begin to metastasize. And once again, you have the tumor. That's not an option either. The Ukraine that needs to exist has to be a viable nation state. It has to possess access to the sea, and it has to possess a viable industrial base that hasn't been destroyed. People say, why aren't the Russians taking everything out? Because at some point in time, there will be a Ukraine, a post-conflict Ukraine, and it has to be able to survive without a back-breaking investment of resources to rebuild it. One of the best ways to get Ukraine to revive is through self-revival. That means that Kharkov, Dnipropetrovsk, Odessa need to be working for Ukraine. Now, how can you do that if Ukraine is becoming a cancerous tumor again? You can't. You can't allow this industrial capacity to empower the cancerous tumor. So you eliminate the tumor, you have the industry now become viable and creates wealth and prosperity so that Ukraine is healthy. There is no diseased tissue that the cancer cells can attach to. All the CIA money is bouncing off because there's not a desire for it. This requires Ukraine to be whole, functional. But it also requires, in order for safety, that Ukraine to be connected to Russia, not the West. And the thing that these politicians told me is that the solution is a union, such as exists between Belarus and Russia, a political, economic, military union. And that the solution is to have a Ukraine, a viable Ukraine, that is in political, economic, and social military union with Russia and Belarus. An independent state, but an independent state whose future is only connected to Russia. There's no path to the EU, there's no path to NATO, only to Russia, because only by integrating the industrial base of Ukraine into this economic union can Russia allow that industrial base to exist outside of its sovereign control. Russia can't allow this industrial base to exist to sustain a cancerous tumor. It can only do it to revive a Ukraine that's part of a Russian-Belarus union that is promoting. And some people say, well, that's just a return to the Soviet Union. Yeah, but the Soviet Union wasn't a member of BRICS. The Soviet Union wasn't a member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. You see, the Ukraine that would be in union with Russia would have connectivity through Russia to the global economy. It wouldn't be this, this singularity that's attached to this larger dominant state. It would be part of a team process of engaging with the world, where its industry not only revitalized its own society, but strengthened Russia, strengthened Belarus, strengthened the world. A whole different approach. And I think that's the direction that the Russians are heading in right now. Again, this is purely an assessment on my part. I know you probably have a lot of people who watch this show and go, bullshit, Ritter doesn't know what he's talking about. Maybe I don't. I've been studying Russia for a long time. I've been talking to a lot of people, and that scenario seems to be, in the long term, the one that provides the best range of options for a positive outcome. For the people that promote taking Kharkov, taking Odessa, taking Dnipropetrovsk, those are short-term outcomes. But how do you prevent the cancer from coming back? Because the moment the cancer comes back, you're just going to be doing this all over again. If you promote the destruction of Ukraine, who's going to pay for it? And again, by destroying Ukraine, you create the disease of poverty, of social collapse, political disengagement, disenfranchisement, that allows cancer cells to come in and create the tumor all over again. You got to keep the Banderas out. You can eradicate the Banderas inside Ukraine, but they exist everywhere. They exist right down here by my house. And you cannot give the West the chance to reinfect Ukraine with the cancer of ultranationalism, of Banderism. And the only way you do that is to bring in all of your appropriate, I don't want to use the term vaccine because people will say, you're a pro-vaccine person, but you need to create the conditions where you have a healthy Ukraine that can fight off the cancer cells. And the healthiest Ukraine is a united Ukraine with a viable economic base that has a mission that doesn't promote the resurgence of nationalism, but promotes stronger ties with Russia, Belarus, and the global South.
considering the summit in Switzerland, they want to talk about Ukraine. At the same time, we've learned that Lula from Brazil, the head of South Africa, they're not going to be there because they don't believe that is any outcome coming out of this summit. And we still don't know if China would participate in this summit. But how do you think when it comes to these type of summits on the part of the United States and European Union, is all PR for them, or why they're doing this?
It's a self-licking ice cream cone. It's just there to please themselves. How can you have a peace summit to talk about bringing an end to the conflict in Ukraine and not invite the Russians? So it's a joke. It's a 100% joke. If you allow Zelensky to come to the table and promote the Zelensky formula, which the Russians have said doesn't stand a snowball's chance in hell of ever becoming reality, even the West understands that, then this is literally an exercise in futility. If China comes, understand China will come after President Xi and Putin met, where Putin said, look, I support the Chinese initiative for peace. But the Chinese themselves are looking at saying, well, but we got to have Russia at the table. We can't be doing this. Even if the Chinese participate, it won't be because they're snubbing Russia. It'll be because Russia gave them not permission, but Russia said, okay, we're not opposed to this, but the Chinese will come with certain expectations that aren't going to be met by this conference. Therefore, this conference will never succeed. And the other thing about the Chinese is they're not big fans of futile gestures. If the Chinese sit down at the table, they are sort of hoping there will be an outcome. They're not there to play guesswork or to make people feel good. They're there to achieve a result. So I don't see the Chinese coming to this peace summit unless they have done the preparatory work where they have people saying that we've bought on to the Chinese peace deal. But the Americans will never let that happen. The Americans will never let a peace conference occur that actually achieves a genuine peace. And I just want to remind everybody that the American strategic objective towards Russia is the strategic defeat of Russia, and the Ukrainian conflict is designed to promote that defeat by weakening Russia, both militarily through a drawn-out conflict and by continuing to justify economic sanctions designed to strangle the Russian economy. The combined effort of a strangled economy and an endless conflict are supposed to demoralize the Russian population, so they rise up in a Maidan-type event, the Moscow Maidan, to evict Vladimir Putin from power. That is the strategic objective of the United States. And you can never forget that when you talk about anything the United States does vis-a-vis Ukraine, Russia, or Europe. They're not there. The United States does not exist to come up with an equitable outcome, a peace outcome, a stabilizing outcome. The United States policy is to destabilize Russia, and it needs this conflict to do that. So the United States is not somebody you really want involved in this process because they're not interested in true peace.
How did you find Xi's visit to Europe? And after that, we had Putin's visit to China. But before Putin's visit, we had these new tariffs from United States on China, and just increasing from 25% to 100% on China. It was a tremendous gift, I think, to Putin going to China right before that. And when you put these pictures together, what's your understanding? And we saw something so strange that we haven't seen before, just Xi embracing Putin. I talked with Ambassador Chas Freeman. He said that it means a lot when it comes to international relationships between these two countries.
Well, I mean, first of all, we need to never forget that Putin and Xi have known each other for a long time. And they actually have a very strong relationship based upon genuine friendship. Now, it's very dangerous for nations to allow the national interest to be driven by the personal friendship of their senior leaders, because the senior leaders are there to promote the interests of their respective nations. And you never want to have the potential of the interest of the nation being subordinated by issues of friendship. But we're talking not about children here. We're talking about two of the most experienced leaders in the world, leaders of major nations, the leaders who deal with issues on of a magnitude that other leaders that we tend to, when we say, well, the Sunak, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, what has he done? But no, we're able to sit there and say, well, he's the Prime Minister of Great Britain. He's a great leader. No, he's not. Macron's been around for a little while, but he's the French leader. It's France. I don't even think they're going to pull off the Olympics. I'm very concerned about a rat-infested, bug-infested Paris. Putin has rebuilt Russia. He spent a quarter of a century taking Russia from the brink of the abyss into this powerhouse nation that it is today. Xi has overseen radical transformation of Chinese society. And again, in a way that the West hasn't picked up. I don't know how many people in the West know that not once, not twice, 3 times, Xi has implemented a 5-year plan designed to bring 300 million people out of poverty into the middle class. The population of the United States is just a little bit more than 300 million. 3 times Xi oversaw programs that brought the equivalent of the American population in totality out of poverty into the middle class 3 times. And China today is a nation transformed. We don't understand it. We don't understand anything about it, so we make bad assumptions and bad calculations. Russia understands it very well. Russia's been working with China. They've witnessed this. They've seen this. Russia and China are in harmony with one another right now. It was a little bit dysfunctional. If you took a look at their band that they were trying to put together in 2021, the guitarist was a little out of step with the drummer, who was thinking he was playing jazz. He was supposed to be playing a rock beat, and the bassist was off doing something we don't know. They were up there. They were trying, but it hurt the ears. After 2 years of war, everybody's singing from the same sheet of music. They're all practiced, rehearsed. Why? Because they've both come to recognize that the threat set that Russia faces in Ukraine is the same threat set that China faces in Taiwan. And that if China allows Russia to be bullied or defeated, then that same threat set will now come and bully and try to defeat China. That the best defense for China is what Russia's doing in Ukraine. To hold the wolves at bay in Europe so the wolves don't become empowered in the Pacific. The other thing is, when you speak of this transformation to a multilateral world, it's done economically, not militarily. And, China needs Russia. Everybody talks about China's, manufacturing potential. First of all, Russia's no slouch. Again, we tend to ignore Russia. I've always advised people to go to Russia. That's why I go to Russia, to learn. The Prime Minister of Russia just he just attended a digitalization summit or forum in Nizhny Novgorod, a city to the east of Moscow, where he talked about how Russia is going to be transitioning to the digital era. He, in the city of Sarov, they've built a laser institute. It's one of the top laser institutes in the world to incorporate digitization and laser technology into the manufacturing sphere. As part of the sanctions thing, Russia has empowered its own software developers, and they have some of the finest software developers in the world. Everybody talks about Russian hackers. You know that. Oh, the Russian hackers. Well, what is a software developer? A hacker who's doing things legally. Same mindset, same skill set, people who know how to do computer coding and things of that nature. The Russians have really good people, and they've built their own software industry. And so they've pushed Microsoft and Apple and all the other Western software makers out. And Russia has its own, and Russia now is working with China. Here's the beauty of it. You see, China isn't just the Chinese economy. China is the gateway to the global economy. So Russia, working with China, is getting its products out to the world, expanding its economic reach. It's sort of a big deal. The West just doesn't understand it. We don't understand anything about Russia. We don't understand anything about China. I don't understand anything about China, to be honest. I've read about it. I have a whole library of books that I'm reading about it. But, I think in order to understand China, you got to go to China. You got to see it for yourself, and you got to talk to Chinese and have them show you what's going on, because we still have a lot of prejudice and bias built into whatever analytical models that we bring to bear. Even people like myself who are progressive in their thinking about China, There's a lot of built-in bias, a lot of filters, a lot of assumptions being made because of my ignorance about China. A lot of the books I read are 20 years old, 10 years old. And you can't be reading a 20-year-old, 10-year-old book except for historical relevance. If you want to know about China, you've got to be reading the book that came out today because they are making advances. You know, we tried to strangle China with chips, you know, the computer chips. They're made in Taiwan, and we wanted to keep that technology. So again, I'm not a chip guy. I hope everybody understands that I'm just a Marine. Okay. I have a very specific skill set, and computer technology is not it. But I think I understand that there's things called chips. I got that part, computer chips, transistors, whatever, but they're made. One of the ways you make them is through a technique called lithography, I believe, and that has something to do with printing. And so you will print silicone chips that are embedded with certain things, and there's different ways of measuring the efficiency of a chip. And I can't remember if the higher number is good or the lower number good. I don't know.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. First and foremost, apologies for the delay here, starting late, but this is due to the sound difficulties we had, but we are on. Hope everyone can hear us especially, and see us well. I am joined today by Scott Ritter. I'm very, very happy to reconnect with Scott, regardless of the location. Just happy to connect with Scott live. Welcome back, Scott.
Thanks for having me.
So let me start with a little bit personal note. I didn't tell you this before we start the recording. I will try to speak fast because we don't have much time and we have to jump into important military topics and political topics. You don't know this. I didn't share this with you before the live stream. I had my flights to Moscow scheduled for the 5th of June. And I knew that you were going, but something was happening with me around Saturday 1st or something of that number of that day. And I could not force myself to go. I literally could not. And I talked to a closest friend of mine, my best friend here, and I said to her, you know, I feel like I should not go. Like I shouldn't go, I should change the flight. And she said, so just listen to your intuition. So Scott, this is true story. I changed my flight. I'm not saying for what day, but I changed my flight. And then 2 days later, I discovered what happened to you. And then I realized I was actually sensing your story, which is crazy, but that's how life is. I'm glad that you're safe. I want to know, have you got your passport back yet, or is it on the way, or are you going to get it back? And if so, when?
That passport has been revoked. That means it's gone, it's finished. I have no passport. That's okay. That's the game the government wants to play. That's the game the government wants to play. It's because it's a game. You know, for all the conspiracy theorists out there, you know, maybe he's in legal trouble. I'm not in any legal trouble. You know, clean as the driven snow. But the U.S. government had a technical, this might say, because they won't talk to me. They won't tell me anything except your passport's been revoked. The good news is, because it's revoked, I get to reapply. So I'm going to reapply. And then we'll deal with that. And, you know, they're going to drag this out. They didn't want me to go on this trip. That's the thing. And we know this for several reasons. One, the passport they issued me was issued in 2021. It's a lawful passport. It's a valid passport. I've gone on numerous international trips with this passport, including 2 rather high-profile trips to Russia. So it's not as though I can't travel to Russia on this passport. Obviously, I can. The timing of this, they didn't want me to do 3 things. They didn't want me to go to the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. This was, I guess, too high profile of a venue. I don't know what they were thinking. And they didn't want me to do my 40-day trip in Russia, which we were going to travel all over Russia and, you know, gather the truth about Russia and bring it back to America. That apparently scared them. And they didn't want me to go to the Moscow International Security Conference in August. Again, another high profile conference. Didn't want me there. And so, you know, they seized my passport, preventing me getting on an airplane. Everybody's heard that story. And they've revoked it. So I don't have a passport right now. there's obvious constitutional issues here at play. And I know there's a lot of well-wishers who are like, you got to fight them in court. Do you guys know anything about the United States court system? I could smell a trap when I went a mile away. If I start engaging them in the court, this is a process that will take forever. They can drag it out for years. Or recognizing that they don't want me to travel to Russia, I can just get a new passport. And so I'm opting to go down the route of expediency. It's going to take some time. They can drag this thing out for months, but I will get the passport, and then I'll be back on the road, as required. Because it's not just Russia. There's a conference in Switzerland that I like to go to. I have an employer in France who likes me to visit on occasion. I've been invited to Malaysia and other places to speak. All that's on hold now until the U.S. government reissues me a passport. So that's the process we're in. It is what it is. Getting angry, throwing things, swearing, getting upset, getting an ulcer, none of that's going to solve any problems. All I can do is, plug forward one step at a time. And first step is reapply for a passport. So there we are.
Perfect. To me, the most important is that you are safe, and I know the audience has the same attitude. Scott, let's go into the topics that are happening right now. I will try to read not the entire article, but big part of it, which is very important. This is from Business Insider PL from 2 days ago, June 12th. President Joe Biden approved the sending of another Patriot system to Ukraine last week. The New York Times reported this on Tuesday, citing administration officials. The system is to be transferred to Ukraine from Poland, where it has been deployed to protect American soldiers stationed there. A little bit more from this, because it says that system would be moved from Poland, and that this was protecting American soldiers. The main problem for the administration was the choice of where to send this system. It should go to Ukraine because the US troops in the Middle East need them. And the Pentagon did not want to move those deployed to America. Now, what does this also mean? It also means that those American soldiers who has been stationed here, I'm not sure if all of them, but big part of those people, a lot of those people, will go back to the United States. I would like to understand first and foremost why they are even stationed here, to protect what and who, and if so it's the case, why they are not here to be here when this Patriot system is being sent to Ukraine. Just a side note, I wouldn't be surprised if this is actually the very same one that has been purchased by Poland recently, and there are a few more on the way. Could you please explain this, because there are some Polish viewers? What is this whole situation about?
Let me just correct you. So you're saying that now that the Patriot system that was protecting U.S. soldiers in Poland is being transferred to Ukraine,
Exactly.
that the paper is saying that the U.S. troops in Poland are leaving?
Yes.
And that's official.
Let me read you 1 second here. Let's see. I will attach the link down below later on. Yes, it was saying here that some of those troops will be going back to United States. This is businessinsider.pl.
Well, I do know that when the United States deploys troops overseas, and especially into theaters they consider, to be potentially putting troops in harm's way, that there's a force protection requirements that they have to, undertake. And one of those is if you're in a situation where you face ballistic missile threat, air threat, things of that nature, you have to have air defense. So if you remove the air defense umbrella from them, you've lost that vital force protection component. And it would make sense then that the troops that aren't, because I don't believe we only have one Patriot battery in Poland, and I don't believe that, for instance, we can deploy troops in Western Poland that fall under the air defense umbrella of Patriot batteries that may be stationed in Germany. So they're not withdrawing all the troops, but I do know that there were some training missions that had been put out closer to the Polish-Ukrainian border. And maybe these are the troops that are being withdrawn because they've lost their air defense umbrella. So that could be. What's important there is that the U.S. troops, all the people are like, America's going to invade, America's going to do this, that, and the other thing. America's going to do nothing of the sort. These troops are sent here for a political presence, so it's sort of being diluted, withdrawing them. It's telling you that the priority isn't Poland, and maybe all this rhetoric about fearing that Russia's going to move on Poland is just a lie. That's an important thing for the Polish people to understand as they're being asked to reach deep into their pockets to rebuild a Polish military as part of a new reinvigorated NATO to confront an aggressive Russia. How aggressive can Russia be if America is going to be withdrawing troops from Poland? It's purely our presence is purely political. We know that it's not real. We know the Russians aren't making a move. And how do we know that? Well, Vladimir Putin just put a peace proposal out on the table today. He spoke to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and he said, we stop the war today. All Ukraine has to do is say we're not going to join NATO, implement the Istanbul Communique, which is just modified to reflect current reality. Crimea, Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, Lugansk are Russia and will forever be Russia. And not only must Ukraine agree to this, but it must be founded in international treaties. The world must agree that these are now Russian territories now and forever, never to be returned. And also sanctions must be lifted, et cetera. But it's a serious proposal. It could end the war today on terms extraordinarily favorable to Ukraine, extraordinarily favorable. If you want to know how favorable they are, mark my words. If and when Ukraine rejects this, they already have. NATO rejects it. I think they already have. And the West rejects it. We'll see what happens in this Switzerland conference, peace conference. Russia will continue the war, and Russia will win this war. And the next time Russia puts a peace deal on the table, Ukraine won't have Odessa, Kharkov, Nikolaev, Dnipropetrovsk. Okay, I'm just predicting the future here. That if you reject this Ukraine, you're going to lose 4 more territories, 20% more of your population, 80% more of your industrial capacity. That's the reality. And also, I believe that the buffer zone requirements and the denazification requirements are going to be a little bit more stringent too. This is Ukraine's last chance to emerge from this conflict as a viable nation state. If Ukraine turns this down and Russia is compelled to finish this war through use of force, that's the end of Ukraine as a modern nation state. They will lose access to the Black Sea. They will lose 100% of their industrial capacity, and they'll become nothing more than an agrarian rump state, meaning with no ability to join the European Union and no ability to join a Russian-Belarus union, which, by the way, is on the table if the Ukrainians would just listen. They have a very bright future ahead of them if they would just listen, but they're not. But this Patriot battery, there's a lot of talk right now about sending F-16s, getting F-16s into the fight. They want to get F-16s deployed. In order to do that, the F-16s have to be survivable on the ground. And so they need to get air defense in to protect specific airfields from Russian attack. And that's why I think the timing of this, yes, Poland ordered Patriots to be bought. It takes some time to be built. And so those aren't coming anytime soon. In order to get Patriots in, they have to be delivered from on-hand stocks. Germany, I think, is committed to provide one. The United States now is going to transfer one. I will put another prediction out there. Both will be destroyed within a month, maybe sooner. And this is known. They know they can't. I mean, what protects a Patriot? When you put a Patriot system in place, which is supposed to protect everything else, what protects a Patriot system? Nothing. Can't protect it. It will be destroyed. And then we're back to square one, which again comes back to Vladimir Putin's peace offer. Take it now. It's the best deal you'll ever get, because things are not going to get better for Ukraine. They're only going to get worse. If Ukraine has to roll into the winter, right now they're down to 23% electrical generation capacity. That means that the vast majority of Ukraine will not be survivable come wintertime. And I will also make another prediction. You'll be down to close to 0% electrical capacity by the time winter comes if you want to continue the war. Russia will blow everything up. Russia will kill all of your men, and Russia will take over all of your resources. Russia will not allow Ukraine to survive as a modern nation state if they say no to this. So it's the best deal you're ever going to get, Ukraine. And then going back to the Patriots, it's proof positive that all of this is just one giant political game. You see, we have two things coming up on the horizon. We have the Peace Summit in Switzerland on the 15th. I think that's tomorrow. Yeah, 15th tomorrow. 16th Father's Day. That's Sunday. I know that. Looking forward to the barbecue. But the 15th, Saturday, the peace conference. And this just disrupted it because all these people have come in. Right now, there's a rebellion. Kuleba's running around, the foreign minister of Ukraine's running around trying to bring everybody back because they were told that they were going to come up with a realistic peace proposal to put toward the Russians. And suddenly Zelensky and Kuleba are saying, nope, it's our old peace proposal. The Russians 100%, 1991 borders, leave, reparations, Putin hung by the neck until dead, da-da-da. And all the nations are going, we're not doing that. So they're starting to leave. And so now they're running around trying to get, now Putin's thrown another monkey wrench in there saying, oh yeah, here's a real peace proposal. You know, if you had invited us to the peace process, this is what we would have put on the table and we all could have discussed it. And this destroys Switzerland, destroys it. It's ruined. Nothing's going to come out of this except confusion. But more importantly, NATO's meeting in Washington, D.C., 8th, 9th, and 10th, I believe, of July. NATO's talking about huge infrastructure development that's going to cost hundreds of billions of dollars, reorganization, rebuilding, rearming, reequipping, whole thing. And they don't have the money for it. They've literally got no money for it, but they're talking about this because Russia's a threat. Russia is going to defeat Ukraine and move on in. Russia, wait a minute. Russia just said they're willing to stop the war right now. It's over. What kind of threat is Russia if we accept the peace plan? Do we have to spend $500 billion building up a military that we can't afford? And so Putin's put a monkey wrench in NATO as well. And you're going to start seeing debates, discussions. You're going to see the European Union start to throw things around. Why not compromise? Why not accept reality? Why not this, that, and the other thing? And so this summer is going to be the summer of chaos for NATO, for the European Union, for Zelensky, for Ukraine, for everybody else, because they're not going to be able to come up with a single unified position. This peace plan is blowing it all out of the water because most people who look at it go, I mean, you know that it's a viable peace plan when the hardcore Russians look at it and go, no, you're giving away everything. We don't want that. We want Odessa. We want Kharkov. We want Zelensky hung by the neck. What are you doing? What are you doing? What he's doing is seeking peace. What he's doing is trying to bring it into a conflict that Russia never wanted to begin with. As Putin, again, reiterated today in his speech, the goal wasn't to capture Kiev. The goal was to drive Ukraine to the negotiating table, something I've been saying for a long time. And they achieved that goal. This war would have been over in April. Ukraine opted out of it thanks to the advice of Boris Johnson. Now the war could be over in June. The war could be over in June. Right now, the war could be over. It could end right now. Nobody needs to die. Nobody else needs to die. The war can be over. But it won't end. And then hundreds of thousands more Ukrainians are condemned to their death. But every one of these deaths now is on Zelensky. Every one of these deaths is on the West. I think it's a masterstroke by Vladimir Putin.
Thank you, Scott. We don't have much time left, but I will do my best to ask you at least 3 more questions. So you actually made a perfect segue to 2 questions of mine. First one will be about the buffer zone that has been created on the border with Belarus and Poland. When you look at the map, guys, the east border of Poland with Belarus, you will see that this buffer zone takes about half of the borderline, east borderline that Poland has. This has been effective from yesterday, June 13th. And as it says, for a period of 90 days from this date, and it covers 60 kilometers, almost 61 kilometers. This is one thing I will ask you about this. And the second is, since we are talking about deals, Washington, June 13th, President Joe Biden signed a 10-year security agreement with his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky. This document notes that the US intends to provide Ukraine with material, training and advising, intelligence, security, defense, industrial, institutional, and other support. Question number one, Scott, with the buffer zone. What do you think this will serve? What kind of purpose? And I mean, not officially what they say, but what kind of red flag events they can create, since we know there are tensions already on the border. And the second thing, what about this deal? What is the point of this deal? Are they still trying to squeeze some money out of it?
Well, on the buffer zone, I think it's just purely a political posturing, because at the same time Poland's putting in this buffer zone, Belarus and Russia are finalizing the second of their nuclear exercises. This one involving Russia practicing the release of nuclear weapons to Belarus, and Belarus practicing the launch of these. And I'll just tell Poland right now, those missiles in Belarus, those airplanes, they're aimed at Polish targets. So if Belarus ever goes nuclear, goodbye, Poland, you're all going to die. And guess what that means about your little pathetic buffer? It doesn't matter, does it? What do you think you're going to, Belarus isn't going to attack Poland. It's just not going to happen. Russia's not going to attack Poland. Poland, on the other hand, is building an offensive army. Why? Wants to go into Ukraine? Well, that's attacking Russia and Belarus. You want to actually go into Belarus? Understand that Belarus is now a nuclear power. Poland's not. You're part of a nuclear organization, NATO, but you're not a nuclear power, nor will you ever be. But even though you're not a nuclear power, you're allied with a nuclear alliance that plans on using nuclear weapons, so you're a legitimate nuclear target. And if you want to play offensive war games against Belarus and Russia, then you'll be eliminated as a nation state. Everybody else will die too, but I'm just letting you know what your future is. Your government is embarked on suicide, committing suicide. This buffer zone is meaningless. It achieves nothing. Rather than restricting the border with Belarus, you'd be well advised to open up the border and begin trading with Belarus. That would be the best pathway to peace, because nations that interact with each other commercially have common interests. They realize that their economic health is dependent upon the other economic health, and then they enact policies that pursue, good relationships. That's the direction Poland should be going. But you're not. You're going down the other route. And fortunately, Vladimir Putin is a mature man, and Lukashenko, isn't going to be, if you listen to what he says, some of it's provocative, but in large, it's balanced, and he's not seeking conflict with anybody. But if you want to fight with Belarus, understand it will go nuclear instantly, and that'll be the end of Poland. Now, the second question you asked dealt with
about the deal, 10-year, 10 years support, 10 year.
Yeah. First of all, the deal won't be ratified by Congress, so it's not a treaty. So it's simply an executive order, which means that, let's say Donald Trump becomes president, he can just throw it away. That it's not law, it's not binding. Two, what happens when there's no Ukraine? Who do you have the security? This is a meaningless document.
Scott, is this PR move? Just like a PR move, right? That's it.
Everything that's being done right now is public relations, trying to prop up Ukraine as a viable, functioning nation state with a future, so that the world keeps pouring, good money after bad. Because the moment you start talking about Ukraine as what it really is, the most corrupt nation on the planet, the least democratic nation in Europe, we can go on and on and on. rational people would say not one more penny, but right now everybody's trying to create the image of a viable Ukraine, one that can survive, one that can win, one that can thrive, and so that's what this is. Understand that none of what's written on that piece of paper is going to happen, and now you understand how important that deal is.
Okay. So my last question, next time I will ask you more questions, it's okay. I want to know about Turkey. Looks like very much likely it will be part of the BRICS. And if this happens, I wonder, with the second army, if I am correct, Turkey has the second army in NATO. Will Turkey exit NATO? And if it happens, Scott, what will this mean to the rest of the alliance?
Right now, Turkey, the modern Republic of Turkey, is still ostensibly a secular nation, although it's led by an Islamist political party. It's a nation that has historically been aligned with the West. It wanted to be a member of the European Union, and that's essential. It's been part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, but it joined during the Cold War when Turkey was the anchor of the southern flank of NATO. Turkey was very important. NATO bent over backwards to help Turkey and appease Turkey. But there were some hiccups, like 1974-75 Turkish invasion of Cyprus, and America sanctioned Turkey. The Turks were like, wait, we're your friends. We're the southern anchor of NATO. Why are you sanctioning us? Because you're really just Turkey. You're not really one of us. You're not. Greece is one of us, and you invaded Cyprus, and the Greeks are upset. The Greeks belong to us. They're part of the team. You're not part of the team. We're sanctioning you. And that was when the alarm bells started. Should have gone off in Turkey, but no, they tried to join the European Union. They will never be allowed to be a member of the European Union ever. It's just a game that Europe plays to keep the Turks in line. You hold out that carrot and keep the Turks lined up and keep them in here so you can control them and you can influence them, etc. Turkey's tired of this. I mean, Turkey views itself as a, there we go. See if I can correct that. I don't know what's going on with my camera, but it decided that I was going to go blurry.
Yeah, it's okay. We can hear you. That's good.
I don't know what's going on. Let's see if I can fix this. Focus on me.
Yes.
Oh, well, sorry. You guys get the blurry, Scott, until it decides to autocorrect. That's irritating. Anyways, Turkey, I actually was at the Russian embassy Wednesday night, Russia Day. And I was not working, but I was talking to, the military attaché and the military officers. And I talked to the Turkish, the Turkish attachés who were there visiting. And we had a long talk about this very subject. And while they are, of course, diplomatic and they can't commit to any policy direction, that's not their job. What they nodded as I talked, and I said, "Boy, I'm going to try and fix this because that becomes a little disconcerting." Speaking to a blurry Scott. Look at that! It worked. So I'm not drunk, but I took a number of shots at that embassy function, so I might still be under the influence of something. But no, they said that. Oh, see, the alcohol's coming back. They said that. I said that EU's rejected you, and of course we have Erdogan talking about joining BRICS. Now, I think Erdogan realizes BRICS is the future, and so he's jumping on this bandwagon early. He needs to get in early because right now BRICS is going through some very fundamental, foundational building block construction. The institutions that need to exist in BRICS are being built, and you want to be on the ground floor of that. And so I think Turkey's given up on the European Union and gone over. What's that mean for NATO? Well, Vladimir Putin today, in his address before the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, said that there needs to be new Eurasian security alliances, security frameworks. Well, Turkey is now going to be part of the Eurasian community. And I think once Turkey commits to BRICS and once a viable Eurasian security framework is defined, that Turkey will leave NATO and go in that direction. Turkey's done with Europe, finished with Europe. Erdogan's smart. You don't jump off a ship into the ocean unless you have another ship to get on. So he's waiting for that other ship to come up and make itself available, and then he's going to jump. But look, I'm in the process of writing a book that I hope to have done by the end of the year, but it's basically the end of NATO. NATO's finished as an institution. It's mortally wounded. It was mortally wounded in Afghanistan. It's still pumping along, but Ukraine will kill it. Ukraine is the end of NATO, and that's the title of the book, Ukraine and the End of NATO. NATO can't recover from what's going on with Ukraine. It's become an institution that's unsustainable politically, economically, militarily. It has no mission, no real mission, no viable mission. And to continue down the path it is right now is collective suicide for all of the European members. And it's also, politically aligned with a political class that appears to be on the way out. One only has to take a look at the elections that were held in Europe recently to see that, the current, progressive liberal elite aren't the dominant force anymore. Just ask Emmanuel Macron, ask Olaf Scholz. So I think we're seeing a transformation in Europe right now, which will show that NATO as an institution is outdated and doesn't meet the needs of post Cold War, post Cold War recovery, because there's that period of time between the end of the Cold War and today. I mean, with an assertive Russia, this is the beginning of a new epoch, a new era. Prior to the assertiveness of Russia, we were in the post-Cold War era. That era's finished. We're now in the modern Russia era, where Russia will be defining global geopolitics for years to come. And everybody else will be playing catch up. Just look at NATO. What are they doing that's proactive? Not a damn thing. Everything they're doing is reacting to Russia. Welcome to NATO's future. And they will react to Russia as they exit stage right, because there is no future for NATO. And when Turkey, Erdogan, like I said, he's not going to get ahead of his skis here. But when it's time to jump, he will jump. And it will be time to jump, I believe, before the decade's out.
Perfect. I think we will witness this very soon. Scott, thank you so much for finding time today for me. I know you're very, very busy. Please stay safe. Everyone who is watching, scroll down, then you find the link to scottritter.com. All the links to Scott will be there, to other platforms of his. Please support his work, and if you would like to subscribe to my channel, share the videos, and join me on other platforms, that's great too. And hit this like before you go. It's free of charge and it helps a lot. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.
Thank you.